Welcome back to WeCan, where role models lead by example by telling their stories, their insights and experiences to guide others, because it's easier to be what you can see. And I'm really excited to talk to Lisa Jacovsky today. Lisa, welcome to WeCan. You're a professor of psychology at Union College and a children's book author, opening minds, young minds, one book at a time. You have 11 award-winning books. You live in New Jersey. And the book series that I think has had a lot of acclaim is Let's Talk, and I believe also Happy Thoughts. And you're also hosting the No Limits podcast, where you interview organizations and authors who are making a change through their work and especially have an interest in autism and psychology. You discuss mindfulness, acceptance, commitment therapy, and many other things on your podcast. And your beautiful books always have a deeper message. Lisa, tell us a bit more about yourself and your journey and how you feel you got to where you are today.
Thank you so much. That was probably one of the best intros. My gosh. Thank you so much for that. I have been in the field of applied behavior analysis since 2014. I started working with adults with dual diagnosis, which is mental health issues and developmental disabilities. And I was very lucky. I was at the end of my master's in ABA program, and it really helped me learn this field in a way that I think really set a foundation for where I am now. I got to know ABA and behavior. I wrote behavior plans, I updated behavior plans, gave trainings. And I think that really kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone too, because it can be hard to speak in front of people, but being
Mm.
thrown into that situation where I have to train, I have to just walk up to the new hires and do it, I think really helped too. I did that for 4 years, and then I started working with kids with autism as a one-to-one behavior therapist in their homes. And that was amazing too, because I was able to learn a different population. And in-home ABA is one-to-one therapy. So the parents would be in the home, but didn't necessarily have to be part of session. And between that and I worked in early intervention after that for 5.5 years, which is actually family training instead of the one-to-one therapy, or it's supposed to be. Not all parents are open to it, but I feel like it all just set this really good foundation for where I am now. I'm teaching as a professor, I'm an author. I'm going towards training at conferences and presenting my research at conferences, which is amazing. And I feel like each step of the way has challenged me and trained me in different ways to get me to where I am today. I was inspired by my job to write my first book, Let's Talk, which inspired the Happy Thoughts series as well. And, through my podcast, I was able to meet Brainstorm Productions, who actually illustrate about 75% of my books. And they employ individuals with autism. So each step of the way has kind of led me to where I am and pushed me and challenged me. And it's created this kind of dual career that is so incredible. And I'm so thankful for. There's been a lot of challenges along the way. It was not easy working with in-home ABA or early intervention. And I'm now switching from ABA to school psychology, getting my doctorate in school psychology instead of an ABA. But I feel like having that foundation in ABA really set me up for school psychology. And I think it's what I needed in order to be successful in school psychology and also successful as an author. School psychology blends mental health and behavior. And getting my doctorate is going to open up so many more opportunities for me so I'm not pigeonholed and I can continue to do my books and continue to present and give trainings. And I think that, the last 11 years have just been a total whirlwind, and I'm really thankful for it and for where I am right now.
Lisa, I love listening to you. And I'm
Thank you.
wondering, tell us a bit more about that research that you've been conducting over the last 11 years. What do you feel are sort of, common threads or main findings that our listeners could learn from?
Oh, I think there's definitely one of the biggest things that I've noticed in the field is that we don't put out there the signs that are more subtle. So, one of the biggest things working early intervention, parents would be like, but I didn't see the signs.
Mm,
Or, I know parents blame vaccines, but what really actually happens is when your child is a year old to 18 months, there's certain milestones they should be hitting and they're not. And it's
mm,
not put out there like it should be for parents to look for those milestones. So once they're two and you get vaccines and see the personality come out more, then you see the signs that are more obvious for autism. So that's one of the really big things that I think we need to change and work on. So there's the signs of not making eye contact and not
yeah.
recognizing family members. When they're a year old, they should be making eye contact, holding it. And if you say, "Where's mom?" they should look and make eye contact with mom. So that's one of the really big things that I think I learned over the years that I'm trying to put out there a lot more. Um, my research that I'm doing now is on social anxiety and mindfulness,
Hmm.
decreasing social anxiety by using different mindfulness techniques. And that's been really, really fun. I gave a training on it in January at SNHU, which was incredible. And I actually did a whole lit review for my final class before internship at school. Thank goodness. So I did a whole lit review on that and presentation on that for school. So now I'm done with that. And it's really, really interesting because these techniques are so easy. They're not obvious. They're not things that take a lot of time. And I did work in a school district for a year observing teachers, and there's so much pressure on our teachers, but that's the beauty of mindfulness techniques is that they're not putting pressure on the teachers. Biggest thing for me working as a behaviorist was always not making the staff, the teacher, the parents' life harder. And
Mm,
that's the thing with mindfulness. It does not do that. It actually is something you can do and nobody has no idea you're doing it. Or it literally takes a minute to 5 minutes max. And it just sets up the whole day so much better. And I watched the teacher use it with her fifth grade students. And they all did it. And the reaction, you could feel the energy calm down.
mm,
And she reported to me that students came up to her and they were not the target that we were looking for, but they loved it anyways. And I think it's really important to get that out there right now because we've seen such an increase in anxiety,
yeah,
period, and depression since the pandemic.
yeah.
I even had a conversation with some of my students from spring semester before we finished because they were 14 in middle school when this happened. And they were like, when we started back in school, it was so awkward. Nobody knew what to do. People were afraid. And I'm like, this would really, really help with it. And I'm also very big into bullying. And mindfulness helps decrease that as well because you're hitting the mechanisms of mental health that lead to bullying. So that's some of the research and some of kind of like the things and resources that I've been actively promoting and working on over the past like 6 months to a year.
Lisa, so give us some tips with these mindfulness practices because we hear this all over the world, right? We have a mental health epidemic. It's gotten much worse with COVID or through COVID. We have so much social anxiety with teenagers and even small children all around the world. And I hear this all the time. And I see this in my own children or teenagers. And I think that we talk about mindfulness so much, but I feel that as schools or educational places of education really all over, they're not yet well versed in this, and they therefore cannot really give very simple help that is needed in this day and age. I think between social media and many other factors that are contributing to this social anxiety.
I 100% agree. Where I'm doing my internship, it's supposed to be mandatory for the teachers to do it in the classroom. And of course, it's mandatory. But about 50% of them actually do, which I think is actually like a really nice number to
Mm,
have.
mm,
So most of the schools, they're not trained, and the ones that are open to it are trying, but it's not fully accepted. So we do need to put out there the techniques, and there's a lot of different ones, and the best thing to do is figure out what works best for you.
yeah.
So as far as techniques, one of the biggest ones is just in through your nose, out through your mouth 5 times. You usually close your eyes and just breathe, that box breathing. There's also the rainbow, where you look around the room, name one object from each color of the rainbow, starting with red. There's also counting. You can count things in front of you. How many things do you see that are this color, or how many things do you see that are right next to you? Or
Mhm.
you can simply count from 1 to 10. There's also a couple other techniques you can do in your mind where have to do with acceptance and commitment therapy and have to do with self-esteem because that all goes along with anxiety too. So what you can do is if you have a negative thought, say, "Thank you, mind. I appreciate that." And then you just move forward. Because what we're doing with acceptance and commitment therapy and mindfulness is we're trying to accept our feelings in the moment and not dwell on them.
Yeah.
That's the goal. So ACT and mindfulness go hand in hand a lot of times, and I use some of these myself as well. There's also, if your mind has a negative thought, you can say the negative thought in a silly voice like Donald Duck, and that makes you laugh. And that kind of breaks the ice, and you're like, okay, now I've got this. Let's move forward. Because it's mind over matter, and people underestimate how much mental health is really due to our cognitive abilities and what our mind says to us.
Mm.
So by getting a handle on our thoughts, our mind like that, it really helps us move forward. And we're never going to fully get rid of the negative thoughts. And that's not the goal. It's just decreasing them to a point that's manageable. So by using mindfulness and using little techniques like that, nobody knows we're doing it. We can say it out loud or we don't have to. And it takes all of a minute, 30 seconds to do, and then you can move forward with your day and everything can be easier and more positive.
Yeah, that sounds amazing, Lisa. I love it. I will apply it immediately.
Oh, I hope so. I'm so glad. I use half of those myself on a daily basis.
And actually, as you were talking, I was thinking I've been doing this counting thing since I'm a child. So,
Exactly.
yeah. Lisa, so what do you feel are your sort of main learnings in, being a professor of
Mhm.
psychology, retraining now as, into a different area, but also being a children's book author and using all your insights to make that journey for small children potentially easier and just, be familiar with sort of common themes such as, talking is always a good thing and, how to have happy thoughts and, all of those sort of simple things that will improve our mental health from childhood on.
I think I've learned that people can change. It's harder with adults, but I think the biggest thing that surprised me when I wrote my books was that adults enjoyed my books.
Hmm.
I didn't expect that. I wrote them for children, but adults really enjoyed my books and it changed their mind about autism. So that definitely was the biggest thing that I learned and was very surprising. But I also learned that one, you can make a dream come true because being an author has been a dream for me since I was a kid. And two, one person can make a difference. I'm working on all these different projects that, I talk about examples from my career of interactions that I've had. And I realized yesterday in doing this, it's not that these interactions just mean something to me. They really actually changed me as a person,
Hmm.
so they really pushed me to want to keep doing what I'm doing and made me realize, hey, I've been making a difference. Because as an author, it's not always easy to want to keep putting books out and the field is so saturated, but I think back to these interactions and I'm like, no, keep going because even if you impact one person every year, that's one person that's changed as well. So I'm impacting others, but they're also impacting me and changing me and helping me grow as a person because I'm also learning from all these interactions. I'm learning how better to interact with my students. I'm learning how better to interact with kids and families. So I think for me, it's just been such an incredible journey. And being able to learn just what kind of an impact one person can have has been one of the most surreal things as well.
Which I love, Lisa. And I always think, you impact one person and that has a ripple effect because that person will impact others. And that's a beautiful and powerful way of looking at it. So, Lisa, how do you feel you lead? What kind of a leader do you feel you are? Or what kind of a leader do you want to be?
I feel like I'm a leader that's very creative and very compassionate. It part of why I left ABA is because I felt stifled and I felt
Mm.
pigeonholed, and no disrespect to the field or anybody in the field, I just cannot be an assistant forever, and I cannot stay someplace where it's very black and white. For
Yeah.
me, there have to be gray areas where I can think outside the box and I can actually think on my feet and do things using my experience, but modifying them. And I tell my students all the time that, no is not a final answer. I've had many, many no's, and then eventually it was a yes, and a zero is not always a final grade. So I think for me as a leader, it's just being able to be creative, be myself, but also show the compassion that I feel. I have a really big heart. I was raised to be open to anyone and anything, no matter what, which I think was one of the best things that could have come out of my childhood, because I have so many friends and family that, are different cultures, mixed races, LGBTQ plus, and it's just enriched my life in such an incredible way. And I think for me as a leader, just showing people that I'm constantly learning. I want to continue to constantly learn too. And I hope that shows when I'm leading to doing things like this, when I'm a professor, so I try to lead by example as well and give as many stories as I can of the mistakes and weaknesses that I have and I've made. So, I hope that my story inspires others to do things differently and do them better. So for me, being a leader is more than just sitting here and talking about my journey. It's also wanting to be creative, innovative, and compassionate to show people that, you can do it too, and that there are people out there that care.
Yeah. Beautiful, Lisa.
Thank you.
And I think very opportune because I think it's Rainbow Week, isn't it? I think
It
it
is.
is
It is LGBTQ plus
LGBT
Pride
plus
Month, which
Pride
is
Month.
so incredible. One of
Yeah.
my favorite authors and a good friend of mine. He is gay, married with two gorgeous little girls that he adopted. He just put together this incredible catalog, which I will not stop talking about. And this catalog is multiple authors, different books, all different diverse books. He took his time away from his family, from his job to put this together.
Mm.
And it was just such a beautiful and smart idea. And I'm so happy and excited that it's Pride Month. I just want to support as much as I can and do everything I can to show that, differences are beautiful. Who cares?
Yeah.
One
And
of
we
the
know
best
that we
things
make a
is
better
my friends.
society and a better economy the more diverse we are and the more different thoughts we have in the room and the more we try and show up for everybody and, you know, make our environments as inclusive as possible, even though right now the world seems to go against that.
I know. And this was, he says it in his social media too. He's like, I felt really stifled and like I had to act. And this is what came out of it. And
Mm.
you know what? If more people could do exactly what he did based on the fact they feel stifled because of the political climate right now, can you imagine what kind of a world we would have right now? Like, this is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. 150 plus books and 100 authors all came together. And it's free, by the way. The PDF is free, and we're trying to get paperback copies for free with Kickstarter, but the PDF is free. But could you imagine if even just five more people decided to do an initiative similar to this? What kind of an incredible, beautiful, and accepting world we would have? My God, I wish.
Yeah, but Lisa, I see that. I see so many women contacting me right now, and also male allies who
Good.
talk about all the initiatives that are coming out of this current climate. And that
Thank
makes
goodness.
me hopeful and excited for the future.
Me too.
Lisa, what would you say? What does success look like for you? Is that at all something you think about?
100%. And it's really funny because every year has been different since I became a children's book author. And, the last 2.5 years have been very transformative to me. And I would say that right now I'm very successful. I'm teaching as a professor, which I've always wanted. I've got a dream internship in October that I start that I am just like, how did I get this? Because I never get things like that. It's always harder for me. So I'm really, really excited. My books are nonstop. I've got a whole bunch of different opportunities this year. I'm presenting a poster at the American Psych Association in August, which I'm like, how did I get in? So I feel like the last 2 years have been kind of very transformative, and I feel like right now I'm very successful, and the way my career is going, I'm very, very hopeful it'll continue to be successful. I have book number 12 coming out this month. I've done two
Incredible.
incredible anthologies, the catalog of diverse kids' books. I have another anthology coming out in December, so I feel like right now I'm very successful and things are expanding. And hopefully, like one of the larger goals is to have a book that's a bestseller. That would be a larger goal. But I feel like success-wise, I'm in an incredible place. And now I'm just smashing small goals that are leading up to specific larger ones, like finishing my doctorate, getting my license in school psych. I would love a larger goal of having a book that's a bestseller. And then those smaller goals of just continuing to say yes to things that are coming my way.
Yeah, incredible.
Thank you.
Lisa, so what tips would you have for mums or for families, for dads, when they're worried about their children's mental health?
Be open. Do your research, and then really the best thing you can do is be open to anything. You are your child's best advocate. You are the best thing that can help them reach their potential. No matter if it's a mental health disorder. I have students with bipolar in my class. Right now, I've had students with bipolar before. I've had students with borderline personality disorder. Half my class right now is autism. I was just like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. But to be able to get to the point where they are able to go to school, get their
Mm,
degree, be able to drive, have an apartment, live on their own, the parents have to advocate for them and be open. I always say you're only limited by what you allow them to do. That's it. And that's why I named my podcast No Limits.
yeah.
If you believe the child because they can't talk, can't drive a car, they're never going to have the opportunity to try. If you believe that they can do it and you find them, the right training, you give them the right opportunities, maybe it takes them a couple years longer and they don't drive till 2021, but who cares? You allow them to do it. You allow them to do it in their own time and they hit it. That is the best advice I can give to families. It's a long, hard road right now when it comes to that. And hopefully in the future that will change. Something that is part of my platform I'm working on too, because we really need to help these families a lot more than we do, but
Mm,
just be open and be accepting. That's the best thing you can do for your child.
yeah, beautiful. Lisa, so what would you say are you most proud of to date?
Oh my goodness. I would say I'm most proud of the fact I never gave up.
Mm,
I never gave up. I've had a lot of hardships in my career. Early intervention for 5.5 years, it's fee for service, and a family cancels, then, I don't get paid. But also, I'd walk into a house and a kid be asleep, or I'd walk up to a house and a parent wouldn't be home and they wouldn't let me know. But I never gave up. I still pushed, still tried, still kept going. And I've got 2 years left until I get my doctorate now. I'm working full time as a professor and have never been happier. And even though I had comments about the title of my first book having the word autism in it, my first book is one of two that sells the best at festivals,
mm,
and I never had a second thought about putting that word autism in the title. And I understand where the concerns came from because, is it going to sell? Just wanted me to be happy, but I never thought twice, and I'm really, really proud of myself for never giving up, never I've only had a couple, things like that come up, never giving into it, and honestly figuring it out. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. And I am literally the happiest I've ever been. And I'm so ridiculously excited for the next 6 months, what the rest of this year has in store for me. And I'm very hopeful to have more opportunities for next year to set up as well.
Lisa, it's palpable, this excitement, and I love it, and I see it, and I applaud you for it, and I want to
Thank
honor you
you.
for it, because you do so much for the greater good, but you're also actualizing yourself and being in your true power and making an impact. How do you feel your personal challenges have contributed to you being in your power now and having this impact and feeling impactful?
I definitely think, like I have social anxiety, and I think that it's really pushed me outside of my box and encouraged me to figure it out. Because when you go to a festival, I remember my first festival being like, what do I say? What do I do? How do I get them to come back over? And according to my mom, apparently I was really quiet when I'd say hi. And, now I've got like a whole spiel, and I just yell out like, "Hey, how are you? These are my books." So I feel like for me, it's been about finding who I am again. Because I kind
Mm,
of went into my shell, when I was in junior high, and it's figuring out how do I become the person I was always meant to be. I had some roadblocks in my 20s, so I ended up getting to my field late. But I think, that roadblock happened for a reason,
yeah,
because I got hired by a woman who misunderstood what I said in my interview. So I got lucky, and she wasn't the greatest as a person, but she did train me well. So I give her that. So if I had gone to my field earlier, would I still be here where I am? So I don't think about my age. I think about, um, some of my friends have like bought houses already or further in their careers, but I think that for me, because I'm like, I've always been different. I've never gone with like the trend or whatever. I've always gone against the grain. That having things happen the way they have, I wouldn't be sitting here if it didn't.
yeah.
Failing the BCBA exam, that was also a weakness. You know, I used to always be good at tests up until like high school, and then I failed the BCBA. But if it weren't for failing the BCBA, I would never have gone for my original doctorate. And if I didn't withdraw from that, I would not be going for school psych, and I would
Mm,
not have my love of research and the training I do from the original doctorate. So, I've taken my weaknesses and the hard times and I've turned them into strengths.
yeah.
There's the quote that you don't always know why something's happening, but you figure it out later. I am
Mm,
such proof of that.
mm,
Because if I had gotten married younger or gotten to the field younger, I might not be sitting here right now. I've seen my classmates struggle having kids, having families. And for me, I'll have kids later, and that's totally fine. Excuse me, I'm sorry. But if I had done it sooner, would I have become a children's book author? I don't know.
mm, yeah.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, don't
So,
worry.
I feel like everything happens for a reason, and everything has happened the way it has to get me to where I am. And I've taken my weaknesses and turned them into strengths.
Yeah, you have. You really have.
Excuse me.
Lisa, what are your immediate plans and goals in this year and the next years? I know you got another book coming out.
So Happy Thoughts Going to the Beach is coming out this month, number 12. I'm super, super excited about that. I also have a summit I'm doing in August about becoming the woman you're meant to be. It is a recorded episode coming out of Phoenix TV, August 20th to 30th. I also mentioned I'll be in Denver, Colorado, August 4th, no, August 6th through 10th for the American Psychological Association conference.
Mhm,
I'm super excited to present my research from Wellness Through Words on medical encounters for individuals with autism. And then I will be in Las Vegas in November to talk at a summit panel about leading with purpose. So I wrote an article about being an author and a writer for the brand new magazine called Incubator,
mhm,
INK, coming out through She Rises. I also have a cover coming out in October. I am super, super excited for Incubator as well, my first cover. So I have a lot of different things coming out. I start my internship for school psychology in October, and I have the chapter in Unleash Her. coming out in December through She Rises as well. And then it's about finding your power and your confidence. So I'm very, very excited about all of this. And I'm just excited and I'm looking at new things for next year, waiting to see what opportunities open up and what I can take a hold of because my internship is part-time till April and then it goes full-time, but I'm off in the summer. So we shall see what opportunities come up through all of this incredible stuff for next year as well. But I'm sure
Yeah,
there'll be a lot of different things.
sounds super exciting, Lisa.
Thank
So, what
you.
would you like our listeners to take away from your story?
Keep going. Keep going. Don't let things stop you. Obstacles are always going to come up, but keep pushing, keep going, keep moving forward. Autism is not a limitation unless you make it that. Mental health is not a limitation unless you make it that, and if you've got a dream, figure out how to make it happen because, being an author, writer, you always hear it's super hard to break into, you don't make money. So if there's something like that that you've always had as a dream since you were a kid, find the way to make it happen. It takes time to make money and things like this, but I don't care. It's led to so many incredible opportunities and I've made more money each year, but it's just such a dream to be an author and to be able to be a leader like this and also just be happy in my career. I'm very, very big on that. I believe you should be happy in what you're doing, so don't stay miserable. Figure it out, keep moving forward, and don't limit yourself or anyone else in your life.
I love that, Lisa. I think
Thank
these are
you.
beautiful words to finish with. And I'm
Thank
just so
you.
excited that you contacted us, and I'm so excited to have you on She Can. And I'm so grateful for all the coping mechanisms that you've spelled out here and little tips and tricks that we can operate for each one of us, but especially also with our children.
Thank you so, so much for having me. This was so much fun. This was such an incredible opportunity. Thank you so, so much.